Joining us as every year is our executive editor, Alan Friedman, a Davos veteran. Alan, thank you very much for joining us.
Good to be here, Eckart.
It is certainly a difference from last year. It was very grim last year. It was really mostly about surviving the economic recession. It was about bankers hiding. It was about a double-dip recession, perhaps. And the Greek tragedy was brushed off as a one-off Eurozone crisis. We're certainly in much better weather than we were last year. But how's the climate downstairs in the hallways?
Eckart, it's better, and I would say if I had to summarize the three main developments that are occurring here this year, number one, we're feeling Asia rising. We're feeling not just China and India, but also countries like Indonesia, the third biggest growing economy after China and India in Asia. And we're seeing the Asians are out in enormous force, the biggest ever Chinese delegation, 130 Indians, a huge Indonesian delegation. And the Western businessmen are going for contracts, and they're no longer fearing Asia, they're now going for business. Second, the Eurozone crisis is dominating talk. They got it wrong last year, everybody. It isn't just Greece, it's Ireland, it's on watch now for Portugal, Spain, Belgium. So the Eurozone crisis and what to do about that is unclear. And thirdly, the post-Tunisian revolt Egyptian situation is casting a long shadow over this otherwise nice weather, and people are nervous about what's going on in the Arab world.
Let's stick with the emerging economies. You are right, this is a key theme here. As we heard in our previous report, 2/3 of world growth is coming from the developing world. Do you see a shift from the Atlantic to the Indian Pacific region, from the north to the south?
Absolutely, Eckart. I've said in the past that I think we're looking at the Asian century. I think this is the year where that is now becoming a reality. Two or three statistics. By the end of this decade, 1/3 of global trade will be inside Asia. Number two, ASEAN, the 10-nation grouping of 600 million people, together with India and China, means that a total of 3 billion consumers are now in that Asian market. Thirdly, these are the rich countries now. They have the capital. It isn't just $2.8 trillion of reserves in China. It's all the hundreds of billions that the others have. And finally, I think what we're seeing here is a recognition that Asia can push back and also say, hang on a minute, to the West, you've dictated terms for a long time. Now it's time for you to perhaps not only respect us, but do business in a partnership mode.
So the Asians are emboldened, so to say. What's left for the Eurozone?
It's pretty sad. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say that Europe will become a Disneyland of cheese, wine, and monuments for rich Asian tourists, but I would say that the Europeans are worried. They've got Germany growing at 3% and the periphery growing at an anemic 1.5%. They've got these several sovereign debt countries. There'll be one or two more, if not defaults, big rescues. And the interest rate policy in Europe is impossible to do because you need lower interest rates for the poorer, weaker countries, and you need higher interest rates to stem inflation in Germany. That's going to be a big dilemma. I don't go as far as George Soros, who said this will tear Europe apart, but I do think when you're looking at that kind of dynamic, Europe is going to have more problems.
Alan, the developments in Tunisia and the ripple effect across the region are overshadowing the forum here. Is there concern in the corridors that this contagion will spread to the rich oil-producing countries in the Gulf?
In a word, no. The concern is more about Egypt. We've seen violence and unrest in Egypt this week. We've seen definitely that the post-Tunisia situation is emboldening North African nations. There's a whole other story playing out in Lebanon where Hezbollah is now calling the shots. But I would say the Saudi Arabian situation and the Gulf Emirates are not at risk from this kind of uprising for a variety of reasons that are about security, about the way they run their systems, and about the fact that when you have more money and you actually give it to more of your citizens, as they do in the Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Qatar, Bahrain area, there's less incentive to revolt, whereas in the poorer countries where there's grinding poverty, that is the risk.
Thanks, Alan.